All Summer really wants is a Colin Kaepernick jersey. I know you love you some Collins, and in spite of my numerous protests, the mommy propaganda has begun here on this Super Bowl Sunday. The Patriots. And I guess it's appropriate, especially when talking about one of the topics of this week's Triple Threat video. Just like the New England Patriots, it's like this. Win if you can, lose if you must, always cheat. Isn't that right, Summer? Yes, just like professional wrestling, isn't it? Now, speaking of win if you can, lose if you must, always cheat, apparently somebody had just gotten done watching a DVD edition about Jesse the Body Ventura, and maybe he was watching the special clip of Ventura and Piper in their pilot episode of Tag Team. God. Mick Foley giving me my beyond question highlight of the week. Now, you know, one of the reasons I've always admired and respected Mick Foley so much is in part because he doesn't take himself too seriously, I don't think. He's cool with who he is and what he's been, and you know, he's never been too full of himself as far as I'm concerned. Somebody that's always been incredibly unselfish, sometimes frankly to a fault. And I just love this whole notion of him entering a wing contest in Philly of all freaking places. And freaking cheating, trying to win. He's sitting there stuffing wings in his fanny pack. Leave it to a professional wrestler to cheat at a freaking wing eating contest. Leave it especially to a professional wrestler to rock a 90s fanny pack and think that that's a good thing to do today. Leave it also to this wrestler, Mick Foley, who's endured so many pains and bumps and bruises that he took a fanny pack that is usually designed to hold all the pills and the drugs, and he emptied it out to make sure that he had enough room to stuff his wings in. But the most ridiculously awesome thing of all about this is that this freaking got like major national press. I thought people were ribbing about this at first when they were talking about it on Twitter. And then I see the AP picks it up, and this news organization picks it up, and this news organization picks it up. Of all the things that happened in professional wrestling this past week, Mick Foley cheating in a wing contest got as much attention as anything else, up to and including the 2015 Royal Rumble. And maybe this is a reminder that sometimes we shouldn't take ourselves too seriously, and we shouldn't take professional wrestling too seriously, because at the end of the day, it primarily is centered around half-naked men wrestling in their underpants with each other. And proclaiming that to be masculine and macho. Mick Foley, he was stuffing wings in his fanny pack. Fucking Foley rules. And if you've ever wondered why, little kids, this is just one of the many reasons why. And speaking of the Super Bowl, and ironically enough, speaking of Mick Foley, as we come to Super Bowl 49, as a professional wrestling fan, I think about the Super Bowl, and you know what's one of the things that I always end up thinking about each and every single year? Halftime heat. The Rock versus Mankind. That shit was off the chain. That shit was incredible. A great time in professional wrestling with two great performers in a company that was full of great creative ideas during the Attitude Era, at the peak of the Monday Night Wars. Think about that. Halftime heat. Somebody in that company, namely Vince, I'm sure, decided that it would be a good idea to have this big brawl match between The Rock and Mankind during halftime of the freaking Super Bowl. Instead of people having the brakes bored off them by some ridiculously dumbass halftime show, they could sit here and come and watch The Rock wrestle Mankind. And I just sit there and I wonder, why did the WWE stop doing this? Why don't they do halftime heat anymore? I think the one time they did this, so people could correct me if I'm wrong, didn't they do like an 8 rating or get like 8 or 8.5 million viewers? Why in the hell would you not want to have this type of rating and this type of viewership, or hell, frankly, if you're the WWE or USA Network at this point in time on a Super Bowl Sunday, why would you not want to pull a half or even a quarter of that freaking rating? In a country where on Super Bowl Sunday, pretty much every other network ceases to exist except the one that's hosting the Super Bowl. Here is an opportunity, here is a platform, here is a chance to draw a decent rating, and furthermore, from a WWE standpoint, at a time where you desperately need to get some exposure on your big new stars. Imagine how much success you could have getting more of those casual and mainstream eyeballs onto your product that you value and cherish and treasure so much. If you sent something out there, like for a perfect example, you did Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins in a fucking hardcore street fight. Or if you said you want to play it safe and you got to go with somebody that you know, you have one match on the undercard, and then you do John Cena versus freaking Brock Lesnar. Now, here's a guy that you know from years back. Here's a guy that people know from the UFC. It's like, it's a win, win, win. Why in the hell wouldn't you do it? I miss Halftime Heat. Like I said, Halftime Heat was so awesome and so successful in my mind that every year, and because of yes, I'm a professional wrestling fan, when the Super Bowl comes around, I think about that match between The Rock and Mankind. I think about Halftime Heat, and I think about how much this company could benefit from doing it once again. So obviously, a lot of fans were really ticked off at the WWE after the 2015 Royal Rumble. So mad, in fact, that they rushed to cancel their subscription and vow never to watch again until next week when they would come back. Well, then, as things may have it for the WWE, whether it's fate or intervention or just blind dumb luck, Raw ends up being canceled, so to speak. Instead of having an arena show, because of that big blizzard up in the Northeast, they have to go to the WWE headquarters at Stamford, Connecticut, and basically do Raw. And you know what's funny about that? Is that I really enjoyed Raw this week. You know, in spite of the fact that, yes, I'm one of those people that paid for the WWE Network, so therefore, as a result, paid for the matches that were given away for free the next night on Raw, I saw a show that was devoid of a lot of the other bullshit. A show that forced the WWE to be creative. A show that forced the WWE to try and keep it simple, to try and establish issues, try to build up intensity, build up angles. They tried to do so many things because they had to do it. They had to work hard. They had to try. Man, I can't tell you how enjoyable those multiple promo interviews were, whether it be Seth Rollins or Daniel Bryan or the face-off between Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. By God, that show had a tremendous feeling to it. It was like the WWE had no choice because of the situation, because of the circumstances, but to try their ass off, to think outside of the box, and figure out something and make it work. You couldn't do this, you couldn't do that, so you had to focus on what you could do and make it as good as you possibly can. And man, they did a tremendous job of that, accentuating guys' strengths and masking guys' weaknesses. They got you really invested in different characters, whether that be Daniel Bryan or Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman, invested in that world title match at WrestleMania between Reigns and Lesnar. That show was phenomenal on Monday. It really was. And it just lets you know that that potential is there for the WWE. It's why we get so frustrated sometimes as wrestling, sports, entertainment, WWE fans, whatever, when we don't get our kicks off and our rocks off to the freaking Muppets or dancing leprechauns in the freaking ring. We want the WWE to try, to give effort. And when they had to give effort and they had no choice but to try this week, and they did, and they delivered mightily. God, that was so goddamn good compared to a bunch of randomly thrown together tag matches. I wish I could get some elements of this week's Raw on other episodes of Raw on the road to WrestleMania, because, man, if I did, I'd be so much more excited about that road to WrestleMania and WrestleMania 31 itself. Well, let me know what you think. What do you think about this week's Raw? Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Was it a breath of fresh air like it was for me? Let me know what you remember about Halftime Heat, and if you agree with me that the WWE should bring it back once again during the Super Bowl. And let me know what you think of Mick Foley getting busted for cheating in a wing eating contest in Philly.